Hey guys, ZTV here. Welcome back to another video. Today we've got quite a surprisingly highly requested video by quite a few of you. You guys have been asking for more details and more an insightful video on my Oxford interview experience I've recently had. This is how this channel works. You ask what you want, I will provide it for you. Just for a bit of background, I've applied to Oxford for 2022 entry and unfortunately I was rejected after my interviews. And this video will just be overlooking my whole experience, and I'm just going to try and remember it as accurately as I can, because ever since that rejection I've sort of tried to repress this whole experience out my head, so this video may be a bit unreliable in my recount. I'm going to do my best to get it as spot on as I can. It's now April, well it's almost May, so it's been about 4 months since I had my online interview. So yeah, I'm just going to be talking through my whole experience. I did also I did talk about my Oxford interview experience in my full experience video linked below. So do check that out for more details, my TSA score, my whole experience of applying, and just a more general video. This video will just be focusing on my interview. Everyone sit back, relax, get your hot chocolate, and enjoy the story time. The summer of year 12, I went try hard with all the experiences I could get, with everything you've seen in this channel. I have done everything I can do. I've done everything I could get my hands on to really boost my personal statement, resulting in a 13th draft of my personal statement with the highest predicted grades I could have got, that I pushed for, of A star AA on the cold winters of October the 15th. On that day, just a couple of hours before the deadline closed, was when my school officially submitted my application. In my school, I was the only Oxbridge candidate, and we also had my friend was also applying for medicine, so we both had to get it in by the 15th of October deadline, and we managed to get that in literally just on the last hours. That was a stressful day indeed, but we got it in, and it was just a long wait till the day of the TSA. Sat the TSA, and yeah, I got my email of getting an interview at Wadham College. Because of COVID, this year all interviews were online, and I was offered. I later found out that I actually got 2 interview invites, one at Wadham, and my second I was assigned to Keble, so I had 2 interviews to attend online. So I was told about the interview invite 1 week before attending my interview, my first one, and they were split across 2 days. So I had one on one day, and then the next day I had another, and I managed to get a study leave for those days. So the school knew about my absence and they marked it off as authorised. And wow, I got a lot of preparation in, so I buggered so many of my teachers, all from the biology department to the humanities department to my history geography teacher, my head of sixth form, so many teachers, as well as my head teacher's son, who was an Oxford graduate. Managed to get in a interview prep session there. I prepared quite a lot, I must say. And now the actual day comes along, I struggled to sleep that whole night because I just knew how much emphasis I put on it. On the following morning, my whole family went to work, my siblings went to school, and I was at home just watching What Makes Us Human, I think on Netflix, a documentary. I was watching a bunch of their episodes because human science is it made sense. And an hour before the interview, it was around about 3 o'clock. So I'd imagine the tutors had a full day of interviews and I might have been the last candidate, maybe. I was just really stressing. I was sat right here with my laptop in front of me, and I was just super stressed. A couple of times I actually had to go outside the window for deep breaths. I tried to listen to motivate, to meditation music and just anything that would calm me down, because my hands are like this. yeah, it was a very scary experience. The time reached, I think it was like 4 o'clock. It reached 4 o'clock and I joined the Zoom call. 5 minutes pass, nothing. 10 minutes pass, nothing. 15 minutes pass, nothing. 20 minutes pass, nothing. And I was getting my stress levels were just going higher and higher. I was like, I cannot be late for my first interview. Have I pressed the wrong link? Have they messed something up? Am I just being forgotten about or anything? So I emailed the admissions office for Wadham. That was my first interview. And I typed up, seems 20 minutes have passed, yet the tutors have not joined the call yet. And yeah, she got back to me really quickly and says, they're just running behind a bit of schedule. Please just calm down. I just sat in that room in my shirt. I brought out a really new shirt, so that was a bit uncomfortable. And I just sat there, just waiting, just looking. And I, again, still shaking throughout the whole time. Suddenly, bam, 3 faces appear on my screen. 3 faces. And there were 2 tutors and 1 PhD student. And the tutors were really just asking a bunch of questions. I think the PhD student was just taking notes down. And wow, I was super stressed. I remember now. Wow, it was really scary. It doesn't help that my room was really cold because it was in October. The heating wasn't on, and my shirt. Obviously, I was just wearing a shirt, so I was getting really cold. So that also added to my shakiness. They joined the call straight in, say anything. It was actually me who had to start it. It was like, "Hello, can you hear me?" They're like, "Yep, we can hear you." And then they gave the introduction. Please make sure you're not recording this to confirm my identity and everything. And I was still shaky, and they tried to reassure me that just to try and calm down, but I was not thinking straight. I was stuttering everywhere, and I was sweating. So they went ahead and asked the first question. We are now 4 months past, and I think I should be allowed to give details about how my experience went. I hope I'm okay giving this video. But anyways, they asked, why do you want to study human sciences? Which was a question I sort of thought would come up and I practiced around. The answer I gave was not creative at all. All I said was, I know this sounds like a cliche answer, but it just sounds like such an interesting subject to study, both biology and social sciences in one degree. Just allows me to keep open this holistic study on humans. And I don't think I was really being tested on that question just to get me eased into the whole process. I think that was the question where I talked on the most for. The next question really shook me. I can't remember exactly the order I was given these questions, but I do remember like sudden bits from each question. She gave me an example of 2 named populations, which I can't remember what they were, but she said how one is sort of have this ability to stay underwater a lot longer than the other population, and they said, how did this come to be? So obviously we've got things like natural selection, different selection pressures, different environments playing a role. And I gave some really vague answers. Firstly, I said something like genetics played a role. I also said the environment played a role, which is the typical answers you'd expect. And I forgot the names of the 2 populations she asked because of how nervous I was. There's so many times throughout the whole interview I was saying, please could you repeat this? About 8 or 9 times, to be honest. And in a way, it looked like they were getting annoyed, but I know they weren't because they understand. And also my internet connection for some reason was really laggy. I don't know if it was theirs or if it was probably mine, but I didn't manage to raise that or let them know about that. So there were so many reasons why it just went wrong for me, went badly for me. But between these 2 populations, that was the 2 examples I gave. And now I'm in a much more common environment. I can say, well, it may be preferred by the females. But there were so many examples, like honestly, I don't even want to think about it anymore. The really weird thing was that she mentioned aquatic the example of how one's suited to an aquatic environment, one's not. I kept saying watery. Is that even a word? It just, all that professionalism's just gone. A watery environment, watery. I ended up saying wet a couple of times, this wet environment, and I was just not able to think outside the box, which was what they're looking for. And I was given really niche answers, I can tell. The thing is, they were really expressionless. Like, they had the straightest faces you could see. A couple of times I did have a light bulb moment. I was like, "Oh, what about this answer?" And they'll be like, just not note it down. I was told by a lot of people that I was going to be interrupted a lot, which I did. I was interrupted a lot in my second interview, but in this interview, I wasn't really interrupted that much. So I was just left to talk, and I'd eventually finish my point by usually repeating a point I said before, or saying, "Well, yeah, I think that's what I think." Something like that. Now, I was going to say that this interview for human sciences was really biology focused, and my next one was really anthropology, sociology focused. According to the feedback, I did a lot better in my second interview. I was then shown a graph of something like allele frequency. It was like an SS shape graph where 2 were labelled as unknown organisms, and I had to figure out what organisms they were. I'll put a picture up here. Now, firstly, genetics, if you do A-level biology, that comes right at the end of the course. I've covered nothing on genetics, so I basically had GCSE understanding of this topic. And when that graph was shown to me, I went, bruh. I just didn't know where to start, and the explanation they gave at the beginning resulted in me forgetting all the initial information they gave me. So that was a terrible question I answered. But I did try and come up with some explanation. I really can't remember. What did I say? Yeah, I said how one could be a parasite living in the human body, where the human body was the environment, being organism one, because you could see how, as one changes, after a period of time, the other one changes. Now that I think of it, it was probably a lot more simple because I've covered this whole idea at biology A level now. I was also given a really basic example. So in AS biology, we've covered the heart and how the heart works, and she gave me a picture of the heart and a contraction, a PQR complex, and she wanted to talk to me why blood pressure varies around the whole body when it's travelling. And I talked about how to slow down so that gas exchange and waste can be diffused out, etc. The thickness of the veins and stuff play a role in it. How when capillaries and veins and stuff branch out, if the pressure was too high, it'd break open, things like that. But I never actually used the source that was given in front of me. And they also wanted to see how I thought, my thought process. I ended up saying, I've learned in AS biology that this is this. So I've sort of shown that it wasn't really me thinking on my own, rather I memorised something which they don't want. So yes, always use the information they give you. I heard that advice before I entered the interview, but my nerves and everything got to me and I forgot. I think that's the other thing as well. No matter how much you prepare, the real atmosphere is completely different. Like, same with the admissions test, it's completely different. But honestly, that SS allele frequency graph, I think, really messed me up. That was a really struggle. I said, I don't know. Never say I don't know. If you want to say I don't know, you say I don't know, but perhaps this. Always keep giving ideas. That is the other piece of advice. I said I don't know about 3 times in that interview, and that got me, because I know, yeah, this piece of advice. Through my summer placement, I did a research paper. I made a research paper on how schools' performances and stuff. And my supervisor actually applied to Oxford and also got rejected and ended up at UCL. And the final tip she gave me on the last day of working with her was literally, don't say I don't know. Do not say I don't know, because if you say I don't know, you're pretty much guaranteed to be rejected, because they don't want to see you give up. And that's what I ended up saying in the heat of the moment, and I guess it's true. So try not to say that. Honestly, I can't remember much more from that interview. But right at the end, they obviously asked, "Do you have any questions?" You don't really have to have a question, but saying a question just shows you're interested. And I can't remember what I said, but I said something, and there was about a 6 or 7 second pause, and they were like, "Unfortunately, we cannot answer that, but thank you for your interest," or something like that. Do not quote me on that, but something like that. They could not answer the question I had. Just I look back on that and I think, wow, there's so much I could have done. After that, I left the call, but when I left the call, it was literally me saying, thank you for this opportunity. And they were like, thank you. I left. They literally said thank, like all of them together, and I left as soon as that happened. I don't know if they had more information to give me or anything. So I quickly emailed the admissions department saying, unfortunately, due to a network error or something, I ended up quitting in the end by accident, a bit short. And they were like, yeah, no worries, we'll understand that, and it happens, but it is what it is. But that was really playing on my mind, that interview. I was given a 14 out of 20 for that interview, and there's just so many things I could have done better. But wow, that was very difficult. The following day, I had my interview in the morning. Again, so many factors. I didn't have my breakfast. I was just shaking. I don't know what I was thinking. After yesterday's interview, I was like, oh no, I blew my chances. But in a way, I thought this was a second chance. And I joined the call. These guys were also late again, but I think they were more like 2 or 3 minutes late, so it was fine. But again, nerves. And this was more sociology and archaeology based. This was at Keble. There was one tutor and also a PhD student. It was just they started off me saying, why do you think human science is interesting? And I gave my, again, cliche response. It's such an interesting course. It's such a unique course. Not many universities offer it. That's another problem I said. I said not many universities offer it. And I said something about UCL being another institution that offers it. I don't know if that negatively affected my application. But yeah, I said that. Then he showed me a world map, all color coded, in something like, I can't remember the term, multiple marriages, polygamy rates, I think. Multiple partners, like the dominant social view of different areas of the country. And I talked about how religion might have played a role. I talked about how things like migration and adoption of new, potentially something like the snowball effect playing a role. Honestly, I can't remember. It was basically just, I had to talk about why the trend was like that. And then at the end of that, he said, what if there's a partner, if there's a one man, multiple female relationship going on, what benefit does that have for the females? And then I said, perhaps in a patriarchal society, in that family unit, the females can be the ruling force over the men. And yeah, he laughed at that. I remember I made him laugh there, so I'm proud of that. And these guys were a lot more engaging. They were more cutting me off, which is what I liked, and it was more of a conversation rather than giving me a question, noting down all my responses. And yeah, it just shows that these interviews can come up in different forms, different styles, depends on the interviewer who's interviewing you. And yeah, I just think back now, and another thing I could have said is that even though if they cannot overrule that patriarchal power in the family, because there may be a king with multiple perhaps peasant wives, if that's the right way of saying it, also by sharing out perhaps traditional roles like cooking, cleaning, it could perhaps improve the quality of the life of the female by sharing that responsibility, perhaps not making it as bad of a situation as it may seem for her. See that sense of company if they're home alone, childcare and things like that. So that's just an idea I came up with now, and I wish I could have said it. The PhD student, she gave me a graph on something like brain size and intelligence or something, and there was just a linear correlation with different species on it. I noticed that humans deviated the most from the line, and I said how that could be as a result of social factors and a bunch of stuff. The thing with the correlation graph I made a mistake on was that I assumed one other variable, which isn't right with correlation. We're taught all the time that correlation does not equal causation. I completely forgot that point. It comes up in all my subjects, in maths, in biology, in psychology. Correlation never equals causation. And I fell into the trap of assuming it was causation. I think that out of all my interviews, my mock interview with my mock online interview with the head teacher's son was probably the best interview I had. I do have my interview feedback from that mock interview, and when my head teacher told him that I got rejected, he was really surprised, like really surprised. I remember. Yeah, it is what it is. But I felt a lot more stronger in my anthropology and my sociology topics. And another thing that came up was the structure of the skull, how the skull structure changed over time. And yeah, I noticed that with this interview, we managed to cover less subjects, less as in questions, in more detail, which is what I liked, rather than my previous one where I covered lots of questions in a little time. And that one also ended earlier. This one took a bit longer than the planned end time. But yeah, after that, I just sent him a thank you email because he was a really nice guy. I can't remember his name. I don't think I'm allowed to say, but he was being really nice to me throughout the whole situation. You could see I was really nervous. And at the beginning of that interview, of my second one, at the beginning, I did say how I felt really bad about my first one. And he said he will take it slowly. And I don't know if that was bad because he was going easier on me, maybe. But I don't know. Perhaps he already noticed that if I struggled in my first one, I wasn't going to get in anyway. So he just wanted to make an easy ride, get it over and done with. I don't know. I'm never going to find that out. Following that, a month later, early January, got my rejection, was heartbroken, but though it's not the end of the road, I'm probably going to be off to Manchester and hopefully, I don't know, maybe apply to Oxford or Cambridge for my masters or my postgrad or whatever I do in my life. We'll see. I finally realised that Oxford isn't everything and it isn't nothing. As a summary, I hope this video helps you guys because this was my experience. It didn't really go how I planned it to. I feel like I was the one having to sort everything out. I don't really want to. I don't really like making excuses. I got rejected in the end, and I will learn from that. But perhaps someone at a private school might have got more support and might have got in. Because at the end of the day, more people end up going to Oxbridge because they get more support. But it could be down to intelligence as well. I'm not going to comment on that. And again, the situational variables that affected me on the day, leading up to it, after it, between the two interviews, everything also affected me. I was addicted to the student room forum for the Oxford 2022 admissions. But yeah, as a summary, I think with my first interview, I failed to build rapport. There was no relationship between me and the interviewers, and it felt like a constant battle, which is meant to be. It is Oxford at the end of the day, but I'd never felt comfortable, which again could be argued it was meant to be not comfortable. But if I built some rapport, it would have really helped. I do think that my nerves, my shaky voice, when I kept repeating the same things, when I kept asking if they could say the question again, me perhaps staying too safe with my ideas, I would get these ideas which seem a bit extreme and I was too scared to say them. Yeah, I just regret those. I wish I could have said those. Like, even you've experienced this in this video, but I now, in a more calmer environment, when I look back at those interview questions from both my interviews, I realise that I could have said so much more. Like, I do get these flashes of amazing moments, but nerves really do destroy your moment. But that is something I'm going to try and work on for the future. I am going to try and be on my nerves, because I know I could have done a lot better if I managed to deal with them better. You've seen how I can expand on my point. That was my detailed Oxford interview experience. I hope I managed to answer all your key questions. If you do have any more key questions, do let me know in the comments below. I'd love to answer you lot. If you lot are applying for 2023 admission or 2024 admission, best of luck. I am here if you need my help, but I am a reject, so there's only so much I can do. But I've learned a lot from my experience, and these lessons, I hope, has been shown to you quite obviously, and I just wish you for the best in admissions. Do follow my Instagram, do subscribe, contact me if you need me. Honestly, just all the best of luck. It is a scary process, I know. My number one piece of advice would be try and control your nerves the best you can. Nerves can be a real killer.